Hi, and welcome back to our discussion. This is a continuation of our discussion on the Winternight Trilogy, written by Katherine Arden. We hope you enjoy.
So is this the book where, yes, that they tried to
I love
burn
that we're
her?
all like, is
I
this the
know.
book?
Yeah,
Or is
I
this the
know.
other book?
It
It's
doesn't
one big
blend. It
story.
is. They just
So
happen to
is
be in different books.
yes, is this the one where yes, this is the one where she is taken down to the river to be burned as a witch?
No.
That's the last one.
Okay.
This is the
Oh,
one where the big race happens and
right.
it's exposed that she is not in fact a boy but a girl.
I thought they were going to burn her at the end of that.
I thought
Nope.
so too.
It was she needs to go up to trial.
Okay.
But it didn't
Oh.
actually,
happen
it wasn't
at
the
the
actual
fire.
scene where she was
Was on
dragged
the
out of
fire.
essentially
Okay.
the house or whatever.
Okay, so she went back to her sister's place to await a decision
And
by
that's when,
whoever.
yeah, and that's when all the other like the when Kashi the Deathless decided to make his move or whatever, and basically bring the Tartars, or is that what it was?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, bring them in
The
to
tartar
like
sauce.
sack to sack the city or whatever. Yeah.
Sorry, that's not even funny. I'm sure that's been said by like every stupid American.
But
I had to look up to see who the Tartars were, because I wasn't sure if they were like the Mongols and I'm pretty sure either they were or they were like the Vikings. Did you guys get an impression of who you thought they were?
I didn't look it up, and I didn't have an impression. I thought they were their own thing.
Well, I mean, didn't they mention that they were something like
More north.
like I was trying
Nomadic?
to think like the descendants of like Genghis Khan or something like that.
Yeah, that would be the yeah.
I feel like they
Mongolia.
mentioned that somewhere in there. I don't know if
think
that's
you may have. Well, they
me
mentioned
making
Khans.
yeah. So I think I just made that leap. So I think they are just the Mongols. And they kept
Okay.
mentioning the horde. So I assume
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where I went with
Oh,
that.
Lord.
I don't even play WoW, and I know because of you guys. There was a really interesting question, though, before we move on to the last book that the author came up with, and it's about the difference between confinement and freedom. And she asks, what does freedom mean to each of these characters? So like Sasha as a monk, Olia as the princess in a tower, and how much of their freedom should be expected to sacrifice to their responsibilities. But I guess, yeah, we don't have to go in that far, but like at least I thought it was interesting, the discussion between freedom and confinement and what it might mean to the characters and what it might mean to you guys.
Well, first of all, I'll say I think responsibilities, if you're going to take on responsibilities, you usually end up having to give up some sort of freedom, but you do it willingly. So like if you're going to have kids, you know you're not going to go out partying every night because that's not what you do, or so you have to be willing to give up some freedoms or to take care of the responsibilities that you have. So like, or if you have a house, you have to have money coming in to pay for it. Or if you have a new car, you need to buy gas. So you can't just party all the time.
One decision leads to different choices, kind of.
Right. And so sometimes it's, you give up a little freedom to do what you want, to have what you want.
Nice.
My own
Yeah.
opinion.
I like the way you said that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought,
so true.
sorry,
Oh, sorry.
go for
Nope.
it.
No, you go.
a lot
Miranda
is.
frozen?
Oh, sorry.
No. I'm just
Oh,
sitting
She's
still.
just listening. I felt like this was a book where Vessia was learning what freedom meant, because it seemed like for part of most of the story she was kind of wandering around, or maybe not most, but it's just most prominent in my mind because I enjoyed those scenes when she's just kind of wandering. Like she's wandering in the forest and it's like, what is she even doing? And like and I think she almost dies one time, and like she's exploring different towns, and like I feel like maybe she felt like that was freedom because, like, you know, she wasn't tied to anything and she was able to explore. But I feel like definitely toward the end of the series, you know, I think it's still not like definite. Like we don't ever learn like that she learns, you know, like we learn that she does take on different responsibilities and, you know, but they're responsibilities that are most like true to her. And I guess like I don't really have an answer about like what, you know, there's lots of different like ways to think about what freedom is, but I think that would be one of them, is having, you know, choosing what is true to you and accepting the responsibilities that come with it.
Yeah, like she found true freedom to be herself.
Oh, good analogy. Yeah. Or is that a metaphor? I'm never sure. Analogy?
Neither.
I don't know. A metaphor, sort of.
Because but like
A
she
saying?
has saying. Yeah, but she like she has a lot of responsibility now as like as the witch, the new Baba Yaga,
Yeah.
so to speak. But
I mean, yeah, she's basically, taking it upon herself to create a link between the two worlds.
Right.
But she doesn't
And
see
I
that as confinement because, it was like,
No.
it's true to her. It's what she,
What did you think about the niece that could see the domovoid?
Oh, yeah, niece. I said cousin before. Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. You know, there's a lot, I don't know if it happened in this book or in the next book, but that her mom grew up with the stories of, of all the spirits and stuff. And I don't know, I just think being in that confined tower would make it be a lot like Anna was, where you have all these eyes watching you all the time. And she so wanted to make sure that her daughter wasn't ostracized or thought of as weird or whatever.
I feel like in that sense, I feel like Vessia came at like the right time. Like she kind of saved her from Anna's fate.
Yeah.
Like she basically was like, hey, it's okay that you can see them. I can see them too. They're not bad. Like you don't have to be afraid of them. Like I feel like if she wouldn't have been there, she would have ended up in a convent or worse, burned at the stake as a witch, because technically she could see them, and if anyone would have found out, she would have been condemned like Vessia was.
I just really like that connection that they had. And
that was really, it's a really good point too. And we don't get to see how her story continues, so it kind of does,
unless there's another book,
right, which wouldn't be part of the trilogy
or a series.
Then it wouldn't be a trilogy, it would be a quadology. I don't know.
Whatever 6 is.
Oh, I was just going with 4.
Trilogy number 2.
Yeah, trilogy. Second trilogy.
It's like Star Wars.
Right. You just start over with another character and then it's fine. It's its own trilogy.
Ooh, it's about her.
Yeah.
She's the main character.
So I was wondering, it's a good question, and I wasn't really thinking about that, but do you guys think that Maria, like, is going to be encouraged in her way?
I think so, because like I know they mention a lot, like more than once in there, that the Sia is gonna take her to the cabin
to the lake.
by the lake, and like her mom seemed okay with that because she knew that she didn't really have a place in this world.
Right.
So,
and that's like that. Yeah.
I wonder what that will look like for Olia then, like as far as like, what happened to your daughter? Like if
they probably will just make it seem like she went off to a convent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we move on to the third book, well, I actually had two questions, but they're not necessarily to this book. But one is, and that is, do you think Vasya treated Marozko fairly up to this point? And what are your thoughts about Marozko up to this point? And I guess I don't have a page number, unfortunately. Oh, wait, yes, I do. Let's see here. So on page 336, in particular, I guess, it just seemed, okay, here's one. She struck him hard across the face. Hear me, you are the Winter King. Call the snow. And like, so she's abusive and she's commanding him to do something. And like, I think like for a woman reader who knows that women weren't given power for most of women's history, it seems like, okay, this is justifiable, and like, like he's the Winter King, like he can handle it or whatever. But I just had this feeling that like throughout this book, she just kind of treated him like a dog, or like she accepted all of his gifts. Like he gave him like a little hut in the woods and a horse and food and safety, and like it just seemed like she was so cold and like ungrateful the whole time.
Yeah, I kind of felt that too. Like she was sort of like
she was
wanted to be with him, but like maybe leading him on a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like maybe realized like maybe nothing could come of it because he was the Winter King. But yeah, definitely like. Yeah, sort of surprisingly commanding at times.
Yeah, I wasn't really impressed with how she was treating him. And actually, I'm not really impressed with how she treats him to the very end either. Like,
it's fair.
I mean, yeah.
I feel like a lot of it had to come with the uncertainty of it. Like, I think she wasn't used to getting things from anyone at first. And like when he showed her, like, oh, hey, yeah, here's, a place to stay, some gifts, whatever. And the way he presented it to her, it made it seem like, okay, well, you can, like, this is your dowry or whatever. Like, it's whatever. But, like, I feel like she had feelings for him, and she could kind of see that he had feelings for her, but they both didn't know how to handle it because they both had never had that before. And so I think a lot of that was just them trying to figure out what the heck their relationship even was. Because neither of them really treated each other very well for the most part. Like, they had a lot of, like, back and forth of being kind of rude to each other and, like, then, like, lovey-dovey on each other and then, like, cold again. Like, I think a lot of it just had to do with them figuring out what they meant to each other and what was allowed.
Yeah, that's true. Can you have a long-term relationship with the Winter King?
Right, like we've heard so many stories about him.
Like the spirit of death, and then what are the implications if, he does start to become more mortal and then like, I don't know, he fades away.
Yeah, what happens to the world or
I don't so.
Yeah, I guess I maybe wish I would have had a little more like, insight on that, because and I know it's kind of like an author's fear to like tell and not show, and she did a lot of good showing. So but so I guess that was kind of my
and
my
I
feelings
think
on that.
When when she slapped him, that was when the fire was going in Moscow, right?
I think so. Yes.
Right. And so she was also very emotional and very concerned about everyone that was living there. And he'd done so much for her that she, he could do so much that she expected a lot from him also.
I kind of was wondering too if like she reacted that way because they had slept together then, right?
I think so.
And I don't think so.
I thought they had, and I
think their first time
they
was
had just
in the third.
Yeah, they had just
really?
kissed once.
Oh, okay, maybe
or twice.
Because I was thinking that maybe she was sort of feeling like used, and maybe she did. Maybe I was getting that even without them having not slept together yet. But I was thinking they had.
No, they hadn't, but I think I definitely got the same feeling that like she felt the kind of that way.
Or like later on when he wasn't necessarily like there right away or like to save her. It was like, oh, okay.
And I think that again had a lot to do with like them both trying to figure out what the fuck was going on with their relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that she definitely felt like he wasn't being there for her or whatever.
Yeah, emotionally and
just
physically.
fearful in general.
And she did have a lot to learn too. I mean, she wasn't.
I mean, she's how old
perfect.
in this book?
I was going to say, how old is she?
14, 12, 14?
14, 15.
Oh, I thought she was like 16 or 17.
Yeah, I think she was a
maybe.
little older in
Oh my gosh, don't you know everything at 16 or 17?
Oh yeah.
Of course.
And you have complete control over your emotions.
Yes.
Obviously.
Obviously.
Oh.
And then the other last question I had about this one, which isn't really to this book, but does it seem to you that Vasya fears being close to people? And if so, why or why not? And I say fears being close to people / spirits. I guess the reason I was asking that is she doesn't, and it took me a while to think about this, but she doesn't have any friends except for the animals and the domovoi and her family.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is a short series, so I'm sure, adding a whole other character that has their own grays and chaotic goods and bads would just, it might do something, to the story.
Where would she have met someone to be her friend? Another girl?
The village. She was all over the village.
But the thing is
but the village kids worked.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
I feel like the village
as far
too,
as
like
the author goes, like she could have done something, I think.
They seemed like they were pretty wary of her in general, like from an early age.
But I'm just
especially
saying,
since she was always out there with her brother and stuff like that.
I'm just saying, like, as far as if the author, I'm just saying, like, it could have been
Boy was her friend,
I'm not
person,
saying, I'm specifically
had,
saying like human friends. And
I feel like she really didn't have it. Like, yeah, technically in the village she could have potentially made friends, but like when she was in Moscow, she was a boy when she was out in public, but she was staying in the tower where it was just females, and they all kind of were like, and she was locked in her room or whatever, when she wasn't.
Yeah, it is very interesting to me that, I mean, I can really relate to her in that respect. It's like, I don't know. It just seemed like.
Well, and the fact
you guys
that
are mentioning like the village and the people and the women in the tower, just kind of like, I don't know. Again, it is a different time too, but.
I mean, she kind of made friends with Dmitri, if you think about it.
That's true.
When he thought that she was a boy, like they were actually getting along pretty
really
well.
True.
And then even later on in the third book, like he sees her as family, so.
Yeah, that is very interesting.
And her horse was her friend.
Oh yeah, no, and I was specifically saying human friends. I had to make that distinction because
but otherwise
she clearly has friends that
she really didn't. When she left home, she really didn't have anywhere to make them.
Right, because she was pretending to be a boy so she wouldn't be attacked. So,
and again, she's very young, so she hasn't had time to meet like a whole lot of people yet.
Right.
But
and
I'm
like
just
her experiences in other towns hadn't gone so well. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I just wonder if that, like, what her overall, I mean, she doesn't seem to view people like in a negative light at all, really.
No.
But like, I feel like I would if I was in her position. Like, I wouldn't really like people. Like, she hasn't really had very good experiences with people except for her family.
Well, except her stepmother and the priest and the villagers.
That's what I'm saying. Like, she hasn't had good experiences with people.
I mean, she only had her stepmother there for how long? Like, it wasn't like a whole
year.
I mean, it was actually
long.
long.
Had a baby.
It was
Her
long
stepmom
enough
had-
because Irina grew up.
Irina was, yeah, that's true.
Well,
I
she
forgot
grew up
about
to
that.
be like 5 or 6, however old. But yeah,
That's true. I forgot about that. I was thinking that she was only there for like a little bit, but yeah, she actually like, I mean,
that was his stepmom's daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah,
I don't know, just an interesting thought. But you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I think I would be a lot angrier at the world, and I don't know.
I think she's one of those people though that just like kind of sees like she doesn't know enough bad to view it like that as to just chalk it up to like this happened and there's still like, oh, look at the spirit, it's good, so there's good things in this world. And like
I think that was a really, by the end of the book, we definitely see that she's learning about like the, you know, like with the bear being like helping for good and for bad. So I definitely think she's like, this is definitely like a coming of age story where she's definitely not fully formed in any of these books, really. But.
Right. Definitely figuring out like what is right and wrong, like how do you figure out what is evil and what is good, and like what the gray areas are. And
yeah,
for sure,
especially in this next book, in the last book, for sure.
Yeah. So the Winter of the Witch, the main plot points, we learn a little bit more about the rules of magic in this book. That using magic causes madness. We can talk a little more about that later. And Constantine gains in power. He ends up putting Vasya on a pyre. Vasya spends time in Midnight, learns of her heritage and her future home on the lake with the horses. We meet Pozar, the new fiery horse. There's the battle against the dead, and there's the battle against the Tartars. So those are the main plot points. And Miranda, you have the first question here.
Yeah, so Vasya was willing to sacrifice herself to the mob to save her family. And the Winter King was willing to set his brother free, the bear, to save Vasya. Do you think that these sacrifices were necessary, or do you think there was another way around it, and would you have done things differently? Like, hindsight 2020, like the bear wasn't really necessary because she didn't actually end up needing him or using him.
Right.
But I definitely think that the Winter King thought it was, because she really hadn't fully grasped like how to use magic.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like he was kind of like, okay, well, we need to get her out of there, and didn't know that there was going to be other help potential there.
Yeah. Plus the Winter King, it wasn't winter. He was growing weaker.
And he loved her.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we learn later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I figured that right away. I mean, as soon as he was willing to sacrifice his freedom for her.
Yeah.
Second he had the hut for her, I knew that he loved her.
Yeah.
But What were you going to say, Mom?
No, that was it. I was going to say, for her sacrificing herself for her sister and their family, you know, and giving herself up. I totally understand that too.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she knew it meant or could mean that she would die.
Yeah.
I can't remember the mob thing for some reason. Is that the part where she's on the pyre?
It's right before it. So it's like there's a bunch of people outside the house, and this is when Solveig dies.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So like she's willing to sacrifice herself. She tells basically her horse to just stay inside.
Okay.
Like she's just gonna go out there herself. And he tries to save her.
How is she saving her family? I'm sorry, I just can't
So
remember this.
they're basically wanting to burn down the entire like house and like break down the doors and kill everyone inside. Like they are just like an angry mob.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so she's basically like, look, they want me.
Yeah.
I'll go out there. They can have me, and then they'll leave you alone.
I don't know. I feel like it was almost necessary, and if it wasn't necessary in terms of how everything else might have or might not have happened, it was at least necessary for her maybe to learn, you know, like she was willing to do that, and her family does mean a lot to her, and you know, I can't remember if her family learns about her willing to sacrifice herself, but I think in terms of that, I mean, a personal necessity, maybe.
I mean, her sister knew that she went out there.
Mm-hmm.
She basically told her goodbye or whatever.
Yeah.
And was like,
okay,
I'm gonna go do this.
That's right.
And like, I think at that point too,
she started up in the tower. That's
right. I think at this point, Vassia just feels super guilty about the whole situation in general, because she literally brought this upon her sister and her brother, really. So like, I think she sees this as the only way that like she can kind of make amends for that.
And if she dies, then she gets to see Morozko again. Like, I thought that's pretty darn clever. Like, it does kind of beg the question, though. Like, I mean, I guess she doesn't really necessarily know what would happen after that, but she knows at least that death equals Morozko. So, like, how much of a like, she's sacrificing herself to save devastation from her family, but like, is it a true sacrifice in the sense of her giving something up really precious to her? Because she didn't have a place in the world yet either, so she wasn't really giving anything up.
Right.
Of her life.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's
I know that, like, she didn't have a place, so she didn't have direction, so her life didn't necessarily have as much worth as it did, definitely to the end of the book. Like, it seemed like, I don't know, that was just kind of, that's just me kind of spitballing. I'm not saying like I was thinking deeply about this before that question, but it's a really good question.
So then, like, in part 3, that's when we first come into Midnight. Which is in dimension, realm, time rift. I don't know, however you want to describe it.
Time rift is good.
Yeah,
I
like that.
Not bound by the same way that. Yeah, I mean, it's not. Time works differently here. Like, you can just basically go to any midnight that there is. What did you guys think of this realm? Do you think it would be scary? Like, the way she's first introduced to it is like, oh, go into this realm, find the oak tree by the lake, and good luck and don't die. Like, what?
Thanks again so much for hanging out with us. What does sacrifice mean to you? Comment below. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you next week. We thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like our videos. It shows us that you enjoy what we're doing. Share with others. It brings together and broadens the community of book lovers and freethinkers. Subscribe. It helps support the mission to inspire more readers, encourage free thinking, and sustain the art of conversation. And at 100 subscribers, we're doing a book giveaway. Comment. We want to get to know you. Happy reading, Gallimaufries, and we'll see you very soon in our next video.